So, Kamohoali'i, his job was to make sure that the sharks weren't eating the people. Because some sharks like to eat people. But some sharks don't. It just depends. So his job was to keep the sharks in check and make sure that they weren't eating people. Because Kamohoali'i loved people. And he didn't like when his sharks ate people. But one day, he transformed into a man and he was on the land, he was at the beach, and he fell in love with this girl. So he stayed as a man and they lived inside of her village next to the ocean, and they lived there for a while until one day more and more sharks were eating people. So he had to go back into the water and he had to go make sure that they were doing their job and they weren't eating people. But when it was time to leave, he found out that his wife was gonna have a baby. So he gave her very specific rules to follow. He said, when the baby's born, it's gonna be a boy. He already knew that because he was a god. So he knew that the baby was gonna be a boy. And he said, you're gonna name the baby Nanaue. You guys say Nanaue?
Nanaue.
Good job. So,
is this a real story?
This is a real story. So Nanaue, he told her that Nanaue is not allowed to eat any kind of meat. No fish, no pork, no meat. So she said, okay, I'll follow your rules. I'll name him Nanaue and I'll make sure he doesn't eat any meat. So Kamohoali'i transformed into a shark and went back into the water and did his job to make sure that the sharks weren't eating people. And then, years and years later, when Nanaue was a little boy, same age as you guys, he had to wear this kihei, which is kind of like a cape, kind of like a sash. So he had to wear a kihei because something about demigods is most of them have something different about them from other people. So Nanaue, in some stories he had a shark mouth on his back, and in some stories he had a tattoo of a shark mouth on his back, and that's the way that he was born. So Nanaue had to wear this kihei so that no one else in the village knew that he was Kamohoali'i's son and that he was a demigod. So because of that, he wasn't allowed to play games with the other kids because his mom didn't want the kihei to come off. So he wasn't allowed to play with other kids, and because of that, other kids thought he was weird and they called him names. They never liked to play with him. And when he got bigger, like our age, the workers' age, mine, Precious, and Monica's ages, when he got bigger, he didn't have any friends, and that made him kind of sad and kind of lonely. But do you guys remember the one rule that he was supposed to follow?
Don't eat meat.
Don't eat meat. So in Hawaii, when kids are young, or in old Hawaii, when kids are young, they eat with their mom. Boys and girls normally eat separate, but until they're about 7, boys eat with their mom inside of the girl's house. So when he was with his mom, she made sure that he didn't eat any meat. But once he turned 7, it was time, or around 7, it was time for him to move into the men's house. So he went with his uncles, and she told them the same thing. He said she told her brothers that he's not allowed to eat meat. So his uncles made sure that he didn't eat any meat. But every once in a while, his uncles would go on fishing trips, and it'd only be Nanaue and his grandpa inside of the house. But his grandpa didn't want to follow this rule, so he gave him little bits of meat, and every time his uncles would go away, he'd let him eat more and more meat. But the more meat he ate, the more insatiable he became. Do you guys know what that means?
No.
Insatiable. It means that he was so hungry that even if he ate a lot of meat, he was still hungry. So he had to keep eating. So this was when he got bigger. He was so hungry that he went away from eating fish and eating pork, and he started eating people. So we talked a little bit about it earlier, caves and tunnels. Did you guys know that there's caves and tunnels that go out to the ocean? So in some caves on the land, they go underground because there's underwater tunnels, and they go out to the ocean. And Nanaue's house was next to a cave that would go out to the ocean. So whenever he'd see people passing by his house, he'd be like, oh, where are you guys going? And they'd be like, oh, we're just going to the beach. So he'd go to the cave, and he can transform into a shark, just like his dad. So he'd go to the cave, transform into a shark, and swim all the way out to the ocean. And he would go eat all of the people who'd call him names, who'd make fun of him, and he'd eat all of them. But as he got older, he started to like this girl named Kalei. Can you guys say Kalei?
Kalei.
So he liked her, and he wanted to be with her. But when he said, I really like you, I think we should be together, she said, no, I think you're weird, I don't want to be with you, and she walked away. But when that happened, it made him very angry. So he transformed into a shark and tried to pull all of the people into the water so that he could eat them because he was so upset. And so he's fighting to get them in the water because he's a shark, but he's kind of also on land right now, so he can't really just swim away with them. And as he's fighting with them, a big, huge shark jumps out of the water from behind him and transforms into a person. And who do you think that was?
His dad.
His dad. And his dad said, stop. And he pushed him off of the people, and then Nanaue went swimming out into the ocean and swam away. And so Komoholi'i had his people go find him, and Komoholi'i said, I'm so sorry that he was eating all of your friends. I'm so sorry that he was eating all of these people. I will make sure that he never does that again. And Komoholi'i left. So in some stories, they say that Komoholi'i was able to find his son, and he was able to make sure that he understood it's not okay to eat people, and he made sure that he never did it again. But in some stories, they say that Komoholi'i made friends with all of the sharks who like to eat people, and they still eat people who don't listen, who are mean to other people, because they don't like people who are mean, because they were always mean to them. So that's why it's important that we're always nice to friends, and we never say any mean words to them or any mean words to even people that we don't know. We always want to make sure that we're very nice to people, yeah?
Yes.
So what's his dad's name?
Hoihi.
Close. Komoholi'i.
Good job.
What's the son's name?
No.
No.
Nanaue.
Nanaue.
Good job. Close.